Good evening, I'm Cooper Henkel. July 30th marks 1 month since the murder of Hannah Miller. The young mother was shot to death, making headlines across the region. But like most stories, Miller's begins before the headline broke.
Oh, there she is.
Next to Lexi.
With her boots, her Ugg boots. She lived in Ugg boots, oh my God. And a Columbia.
Well, they were so cute back then.
Hannah Miller grew up in Rhinelander.
We've known Hannah since daycare. She was going to my grandma's daycare.
Yeah.
She walked in and she had this red hair and she was so pale. It's been like us three ever since, it feels so.
Kelly Lee, Allie Hoffine, and Lexi Hooven stayed close with Miller over the decades.
Homecoming? This was our senior homecoming.
Again with the Columbia.
Yeah.
Shortly after moving to Minneapolis in 2016, Miller met and began a relationship with Christopher Terrell Anderson, also known as Bravo. Friends say the relationship turned abusive after the couple were engaged, prompting a separation and Miller's return to the Northwoods in early 2020.
This was supposed to be a fresh start for her, this apartment, moving back from Minneapolis. She wanted to be closer to her family and her friends and for all of us to get to know Nova.
But friends say her new start took a turn for the worse.
He came for a visit to visit Nova because she still wanted Nova and him to have a relationship. And he never left. And this apartment kind of turned into a hellhole for her.
In the week leading up to Miller's murder, she told friends she was finally feeling free from Anderson's influence on her life after a year of readying to make her second break.
At one point, I turned to her and I said, "Aren't you worried about Chris? We haven't heard from him. Aren't you scared? Don't you wonder where he is or what he's up to?" And she said, "No, this is the most free I felt from him in years." So to think she felt that way, and then he comes through like 72 hours later and just takes her life.
Hoffine was helping Miller move out of her apartment leading up to June 30th, 2021.
The only thing we had to finish is getting the bigger stuff out, which her family came over and helped her with on Tuesday. So Wednesday morning, we were texting and she just had to grab the cable boxes and wipe off a few things.
When Seth Wakefield allegedly spotted Miller
And had gone and told Chris that she was at the apartment by herself. At that point, Chris had somebody else drive him to this location to drop him off.
Friends can only imagine what exactly happened between Wakefield's call and the discovery of Miller's body alongside Riverbend Road in the town of Pelican.
After Chris got her at the apartment, he drove down here, maybe trying to take some back roads to her parents' house to where he assumed Nova and her parents were. There were witnesses that saw them arguing on the side of this road, and the car was in the middle of the road with both doors open. And then the next time someone else drove by, Hannah was laying on the side of the road. So this is a memorial for Hannah. This is where she was found.
I was working at the salon I work up in Eagle River, and my fiance had called me and said that there's a picture of Chris out on the news and that nobody had heard from Hannah.
So at that point, her family was like, "We'll call you right back." And then they called me back and they let me know it was Hannah. And I remember screaming, "Why would he do that?" And I didn't even know it was me doing that. I didn't even know it was me screaming.
I work in healthcare, so I don't have my phone with me when I work. So I knew when I got a call from him it was bad. And I just went in the break room and cried and cried and cried.
A devastation made worse as weeks went by without answers. Wakefield's arrest on July 2nd brought more confusion and pain to friends than the answers they had hoped for.
I've never heard of Seth. I didn't know Seth. I've lived here my whole life. Had no idea who he was.
Wakefield allegedly helped Anderson stalk Miller with the intention of killing Miller, her parents, and kidnapping Nova, Miller and Anderson's daughter.
And no amount of money makes it okay for you to decide that you can take a life. It's just so unfair.
Anderson's whereabouts remain unknown. Authorities found the PT Cruiser and Mitsubishi Outlander Anderson is believed to have taken after killing Miller on July 5th in St. Paul, Minnesota.
I want him to answer to Nova. And I think that's the real punishment, is you will have to look at that daughter you were willing to kill for and tell her, "I was selfish, I was stupid. I had no regard for your mother's life, and I had no regard for yours." And that's the punishment he deserves.
while they search for a way to heal and keep Hannah's memory alive in the meantime.
I don't want this to get washed under, and then in a year people say, oh yeah, a year ago today that Hannah Miller girl passed. I don't want that. I want her name to continually be out there.
Stories like Miller's aren't unique. Thousands of others are in similar situations right now. Newswatch 12's Georgina Fernandez takes a step back to put Miller's story in context, alongside dozens of others here in Wisconsin. Georgina?
Cooper, here in my hands, I hold the stories of the 72 lives that were lost in 2019 due to domestic violence. Now, of these victims, 16 were in the process of leaving their partner or had already ended that relationship. And experts say the time after a victim leaves is some of the most dangerous moments of their life.
When someone comes to us, it's one of the worst moments of their life.
Jane Graham Jennings has directed the Women Community Inc. in Wausau for the past 25 years. Each year, her staff responds to 1,500 phone calls, assisting 600 to 800 people annually. Many seeking support during one of the most dangerous chapters in their lives.
Majority of victims that are murdered after they have left the relationship.
According to Graham Jennings, abusers and domestic violence relationships feed on the power and control dynamic of a relationship. And once that dynamic is broken,
when a victim says, I'm going to leave, that becomes a sign to the abuser, you have no more power over me, and that's a really dangerous time.
Leaving is not as simple as it seems.
How do you leave somebody who's put a gun in your face before? Because in that moment, all you're thinking about is survival.
A reality that Hannah Miller's friends said she experienced.
He controlled all aspects of Hannah, what she ate, who she talked to. He would go through her phone.
Not all abuse leaves behind physical evidence.
They say, sometimes I wish once they would have just hit me so I could show someone what was happening, because it was so hard to believe.
Graham Jennings says often tactics include having control over the victim's work life, finances, and threats. They craft almost a world where it's just the two of them.
Right, absolutely. And that's how they isolate.
Unlike many others, Hannah's abuse didn't end after the two separating.
Her biggest fear was always, if I call the police, he gets arrested this time, he gets out and he comes back, and what is he going to do to me when he comes back?
The abuser's need to control still there post-breakup.
And oftentimes perpetrators are thinking, if I can't have you, no one can.
Sparking the shift from abuse to deadly violence.
I think he knew that she felt relaxed. I mean, if he had been watching her, he could see that she was going out with us, going out with friends, that she felt secure for the first time. And he knew that she was relaxed, and he knew she was vulnerable.
Graham Jennings says those seeking to leave an abusive relationship should reach out to an advocate to help discuss and create a safety plan to help secure their leaving.
One tactic abusers use is isolation, convincing someone they're completely alone and without options. Newswatch 12's Morgan Johnson spoke to an expert about how abuse affects more than just the victim and how their family and friends can help. Morgan?
Cooper, the impact of domestic violence events can be lifelong. That violence doesn't just affect the victim, it changes the lives of their loved ones and an entire community.
When a traumatic event like Miller's happens, it doesn't get washed away the next day.
Personally, I don't feel any different than the day we found out. It's still shocking. It doesn't feel real.
The impact is lasting.
It's more than hurting Hannah. You've hurt a community. You've hurt her family. You've hurt her daughter.
Friends say Miller's relationship with Anderson was abusive, physically and mentally. Miller tried to cut ties with him.
And Hannah tried many steps to get away from him. She tried to take a restraining order out on him. But the bureaucracy of it is that you need an address, and he didn't have one.
Angie F., a victim advocate at the Tri-County Council on Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault, calls it an escape and says it's not as simple as it seems. Angie says abusers often rely on manipulating people to keep power and control.
We'd like to say that the signs are obvious, like bruises and cuts and broken bones, but it's really not that simple. Domestic abuse goes beyond physical violence.
Helping a loved one escape the abusive spiral can be complicated. But Angie says the best thing to do is be supportive.
Just give them as much love and support as you can, no matter what they decide to do.
Miller surely wasn't lacking love and support, but even supportive situations can still end in tragedy. Miller's friends want her story to stay alive and hopefully get answers and justice.
Everyone just needs to come together and do the right thing. Keep sharing this story. Don't let it die out.
Christopher Terrell Anderson is wanted for the murder of Hannah Miller on June 30th, 2021. Anderson may be in northern Wisconsin, the Twin Cities, or the Chicago area. If you have any information about Anderson or his whereabouts over the last month, please contact the Oneida County Sheriff's Department at the number on your screen.